At this moment, we would like to start the regular press conference with Minister Motegi. Mr. Motegi, the floor is yours.
Now, there's one point that I would like to state, first of all. The people who have exited from Afghanistan, their arrival in Japan. Last week, on the 8th of October, with the support of the Qatari government, the local staffs of Japanese embassy in Afghanistan, as well as the JICA Afghanistan office, 53 of them who exited Afghanistan arrived in Japan. As for those local staffs to exit from Afghanistan, the government has taken various diplomatic efforts up until now. And this time, with our successful approach to the Qatari government, we have been able to successfully bring over 53 of those local staffs to Japan. And apart from these, with the support of Japan, those who have exited Qatar, and from now onwards, there will be a little bit less than 140 local staffs who will be arriving in Japan going forward, and of which 50 will be arriving in Japan tomorrow. And up until now, more than 300 Afghan people related to Japan have exited Afghanistan, and already 118 of them have entered Japan. I myself, in August, I visited the Middle East and Qatar, and also at the September United Nations General Assembly, I have met with the Foreign Minister Muhammad of Qatar to directly appeal for their support. And I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude for the Qatari government who have given us their kind support. And going forward, the government of Japan will work closely with the relevant countries, including the United States and Qatar, and through diplomatic efforts, including negotiations with Taliban, we will make our all-out efforts to support the necessary exit and secure the safety of the local staffs as well as Japanese nationals.
Those of you with questions, please come to the nearest microphone, state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Go ahead, Aibara-san. Aibara from Asahi. I have a question related to Afghanistan. The other day in Qatar, the U.S. delegation met with the representatives of Taliban. I understand that humanitarian issue was part of the agenda. I think Mr. Uemura is being sent over there. So what is the humanitarian policy of the Japanese government going forward? In the meeting between the U.S. and Taliban, terrorism, human rights, safe passage of people, and humanitarian assistance that you asked about were also discussed from what we understand. For Japan, in Afghan and in neighboring countries, there's rising humanitarian needs through international institutions, inclusive of our new assistance of $65 million. And a total of $200 million of assistance is to be given from the Japanese government, we expressed. For Taliban, I think the international community needs to speak in one voice. For one, to protect all Afghans' lives and property, restore social order, that's number one. Number two, to protect and enhance basic human rights, in particular those of women. And number three, to install an inclusive political process to include diverse ethnic and religious groups. We would like to tenaciously request these to be implemented. And I think it's important to pay close attention to the actual behaviors of the Afghan government. There are Japanese nationals and local staff. We need to secure the safety of them and provide support for their departure. In collaboration with the U.S. and Qatari government, we would like to continue to provide full support and effort.
Next question, please. Yes, Tomita-san, please. Tobita from Nikkei. Now, at the outset, you made a statement on the local staffs who have exited from Afghanistan. I have a question on this. More than 300 people will be arriving in Japan in total. So between government of Japan and Taliban, have there been negotiations, and is it a result of such negotiation? Would you give us more details? And as for the remainder 200, would you be continuing in negotiation going forward? Yes, with Taliban, we have directly been negotiating with them. And further, as I have mentioned earlier, of course, up until now, there has been approach to the Qatari government, who had various relationship with the Taliban up until now. So we have been working with the different parties for the Japanese nationals, as well as local staffs of the Japanese Embassy and JICA office, to exit from Afghanistan and have been safely arriving in Japan. We have been successfully been able to do so. As for the remainder of people, of course, there are different circumstances. And for those who wishes to move out of Afghanistan, we would like to make all our efforts continuously for their safe travel.
Next question. Yamamoto-san, go ahead. Yamamoto from NHK. I have a question regarding foreign visits by Prime Minister Kishida. On a TV program last night, as head of state, he wishes to meet President Biden first. That's what Prime Minister Kishida said, and trust needs to be developed. Do you agree with what he said? And for face-to-face summit meeting with the U.S., what is the status, if you could share that with us? The U.S.-Japan Security Alliance is at the heart of Japan's diplomatic and security policies, so it's very critical for Japan to strengthen the alliance with the U.S. At the same time, realizing FOIP from that perspective, Japan, Australia, India, we are collaborating with these countries, which I believe is very important. So from that perspective as well, Prime Minister Kishida has already had a number of telephone talks. And first, he talked with President Biden on telephone, and he also talked with the Australian Prime Minister over the phone as well. So when it comes to in-person summit meetings, utmost priority will be given to the summit meeting with the U.S. And so I completely share his thought. As to the coordination of the schedule, that will take place going forward. And depending on the time schedule, of course, different timings will have to be considered by the U.S. as well as by Prime Minister Kishida. So before having a Japan-U.S. summit meeting, I'm not ruling out any possibility of having a different summit meeting with other countries.
Next question, please. Yes, thank you. My name is Hamamoto from the Internet the Media WJ. Now, the new post which has been created under the Kishida the cabinet, which is the Minister for Economic Security. The Mr. Amari, on the 3rd of October, in the television program, the Party Secretary General has mentioned about what to do with the decoupling with China and the U.S. And in the Minister Kobayashi, the new Minister for Economic Security, has made a press statement, and he explained that the question was asked whether the minister responsible for proceeding with decoupling with China. He replied that Japan and China are the second and the third economic powers in the world. And looking at the trade and investment, the ties between the two countries are quite deep. So decoupling is unrealistic. Japan and China decoupling is not something necessary. The Minister for Economic Security and the Secretary General of the ruling party are saying exactly the opposite. As for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is responsible for foreign policy, how would you deal with this decoupling issue with China? To deal with China, I believe, should primarily be the responsibility of the Foreign Ministry, and also when it comes to defense, it would be the Defense Ministry. Why is that the new Prime Minister Kishida has actually created this post of Minister for Economic Security? And what about the disagreement between Minister Kobayashi and Secretary General Amari? May I have your thoughts? As for the Foreign Minister, there are things that I should answer, and there are the responses that we are able to make. Those are the things I would like to state. Now, we would like to work closely with those countries sharing the universal values on China. We would like to continue dialogue on common issues. We would like to cooperate, and also asking China to take responsible behavior. And more recently, the security, the scope of security that has expanded to include economic as well as technology sectors. There are interstate competition becoming conspicuous in the area of economic security. It is increasingly important to secure strategic commodities as well as the critical technologies and to prevent outflows of technology. For the economic security to be secured, to make legislative measures, the government as a whole need to proceed with taking necessary measures. So as for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we will work closely with the minister in charge of economic security so that we would like to actively contribute to the whole of government endeavors.
Any other questions? Tobita-san, go ahead. Tobita from Nikkei. Last night, Prime Minister Kishida in Tokyo Television's program, he said that it's necessary to put in place a structure and legislature to be able to respond to various situations. And Minister, you said that you need to consider preparing depending on the situation. So if there are response measures in mind in order to respond to the situation at hand. As to your question, we are now consulting as to what to do, but given the nature of the issue, I would like to refrain from making comments in detail. Any further questions? If not, we would like to close the press conference. Thank you.